Hi, welcome to the 2020 season of The Dans. We're back. I'm Dan McKay. I'm a reporter with the Albuquerque Journal. I'm here with my colleague Dan Boyd, also with the Albuquerque Journal. We will be covering the legislature and the governor all session. We're here in the chambers of the New Mexico State Senate getting ready for the session. We had kicked around the idea of arriving on a tandem bike to start off this season, but I'm not sure there was enough money in the budget for that. We're still working on that issue. The budget, of course, will be an enormous issue here during the legislative session. An oil boom is providing a lot of money for New Mexico and allowing increased spending on education and all kinds of other services. But there are going to be quite a few issues that are taken up that aren't financial. The governor is adding some other items to the agenda. This is her second session, and so she's got some ideas of things she'd like to take up that didn't make it through the first time.
Yeah, and this being a 30-day session, there's only a limited time period to do that, so it'll be kind of a rush against the clock. Some of the issues she's added to the agenda include legalizing recreational marijuana, which has been proposed in past years and hasn't gotten through, but it has gotten a little further along in the process. Also, there's a controversial gun bill, a red flag gun law that would allow temporary seizures of firearms from some individuals. That's also going to be one that's going to prompt a lot of debate and might have a tough time getting through. Some of her other issues, though, have gotten a little more support from the legislature, including setting up a new endowment fund for early childhood programs and using some of that oil money that you mentioned to kind of get that off the ground and give it a head start.
Yeah, there are definitely some points of agreement as the session gets underway. Both the governor and the legislature have issued budget recommendations, kind of an initial template that they'll start with. Both recommendations include creation of a new early childhood trust fund that would receive a few $100 million to start out with. The goal would be to treat it like an endowment fund that would provide tens of millions of dollars for early childhood programs like pre-K, home visiting, child care assistance, and provide sort of a sustainable source of funding on that. Both groups are also setting aside some money to prop up the retirement system. The pension funds for both educators and for sort of rank and file government employees have both been chronically underfunded and have affected the state's bond rating and things like that. Those are both, in any case, it looks like we may see some action on that as well. It seems like one of the interesting political dynamics in a 30-day session is that as soon as it's over, we kind of go right into election season. Dan, what do you see in sort of emerging in the state Senate? They are up this year. They were not up last time. They come up every 4 years. So they will be facing some extra election pressure that is not always present.
Yeah, I think that'll certainly be a dynamic at play in the session, that all 112 seats are up for election. I think in the Senate specifically, look for some moderate Democrats who are facing kind of progressive challengers in the primary election. It'll be interesting to see how they vote on some of those kind of hot button issues and if there's any kind of political pressure there. Certainly last year, the House passed a lot of bills that then kind of maybe got scaled back or ended up dying in the Senate. So that's another dynamic that we'll be watching during the session, kind of keeping an eye on. This year, most of the faces in the legislature will be the same. There's a couple new members due to three former legislators who passed away last year. But other than that, it'll be a lot of the same cast of characters from last year's 60-day session.
And even though there is quite a bit of overlap on the budget, there are definitely going to be some important points of disagreement. We're already seeing a clash over whether to fund a new college scholarship program that would essentially provide free tuition to state residents. That has been a priority of the governor. Also, there is a discrepancy in the recommendations over some early childhood funding for a child care assistance program that helps parents have a place to send their children while they work or go to school. So having a lot of money to spend also gives legislators some pretty important questions about where to invest it.
Yeah, and I think where to invest it and how much of it to invest. There's certainly the argument that a lot of this money should be set aside for future years and when the oil boom inevitably dries up, whenever that is. But yeah, it should be a busy session, always 30-day sessions. A lot of it will come down to the last few days. So certainly we'll be bringing you the news as that happens and trying to keep you updated both in the paper and online as well. And looking forward to it.
Yes, we really appreciate everyone who reads our stories, watches our videos, visits the website, buys the paper, any of that stuff. We are really looking forward to the session. I think it's going to be a really interesting one, and I'm excited to get it underway.